Spoken to James in the previous hour. I'll come back to you in a second. Norman, what's your take on what's happened over... Well, it was actually last weekend that this happened.
Well, look, I don't think the Met chief should resign. That doesn't achieve anything at all, particularly to do that. What I do think is that the police officer in there was trying to do his best. He handled it very clumsily. He shouldn't have used the phrase he used. But ultimately, it's a long-standing tradition of the police to try and keep, if you like, warring factions, if I can call them that, separated in order to keep the peace. It happens in Northern Ireland between Catholics and Protestants. It happens in my town in Lewis on Boxing Day when there's one side of the road's got people in favour of hunting, the other side of the road's people are going against hunting. So it's good policing to do that. Now, what should have happened, in my view, in that situation, was the police officer could have advised the Jewish person that it wasn't very helpful to cross the road. It may be dangerous for him. But ultimately, if he wanted to cross the road, he can cross the road. That's his decision. It's a free country. So it was quite wrong to use the terminology he did. And it was also wrong, I think, to threaten the rest.
It's interesting, isn't it, James, that we go back and we talk about how we have less policemen and women on the streets with it less intel and seemingly less concern about, you know, burglaries and shops are being turned over. And now we've got this huge debate about these marches. I mean, I've said consistently throughout, everybody would understand Israel's right to do what it did after October the 7th, but I, like every other sane human being in the world, looks at what's going on in Gaza now and thinks, my God, that's got to stop. Yeah. However, the right to protest, the right to free speech is the very cornerstone of this country. But the problem we've got now is that these marches, on whatever side, are being hijacked by people, and that makes it difficult. But when it comes to the police, I want strategy. I think Peter Bletchley was right in that. Rowley, you said it as well. Grow a backbone and come up with a strategy that is balanced and right. You are in charge of the Met. And I know people hate for me to slag him off, but Sadiq Khan's very quiet when this sort of stuff goes on, isn't he? And Sadiq Khan was half responsible for putting Rowley there. I think Sadiq Khan needs to be more vocal on this as well. He's very vocal when somebody upsets somebody by saying something that, you know, is apparently a hate crime. He should be absolutely out front and centre.
He has made
what has he said?
I think he's going to have a meeting, with Mark Rowley on this.
Oh, is he?
But I think, you know, you're absolutely
right. You know what I mean?
Jeremy.
Get together and get it sorted.
And also, you know, OK, maybe this particular officer was a bit clumsy in his use of language.
Clumsy's a great word.
But still, why should it be provoking in some way for, to use his words, an openly Jewish person, someone wearing a skull cap, to walk past a Palestinian protest? That then begs questions as to some of the people on that march.
Well, he's a counter-protester.
Well, he claimed he was just trying to walk past the pavement.
But he is, and he has been, and he's holding a counter-protest next Saturday as well. So that's
not on the day in question. I think he was just trying to navigate past. But
the point's bigger. Let's say he went there with his camera to get that reaction from the police. Let's just nail this.
Yeah.
He should be able to walk past as if there's a Jewish one, a pro-Palestinian person. I'm talking about the Met. I'm not actually talking for once about who's on whatever side. I'm talking about a police force, Norman. Let's just cut to the chase. The optics about the Met Police over the last few months and years are frankly disgusting. And we go on about, I know it happens elsewhere, but it is frightening how incompetent they come across as.
Yes.
And that stops with the main person who wanted the job.
It goes much deeper than the main person, sadly. It's through the organisation.
Well, then get it sorted.
If you look at the front page of the Times today, you'll find that most people have lost confidence in the police generally.
Do you think, by the way, here's a question for you, ex-Home Office Minister, do you think that's unfair on other police forces and it's led because the Met is so seemingly used to tripping itself up? Or do you think this is genuinely across the whole of policing in this country?
I think it's across the whole of policing. It's worse than the Met, but I think it's across the whole of policing. It's partly down to police numbers and the withdrawal, for example, of police support officers, which just means there's not much visibility.
And intel on the street, officers,
on the streets. You don't see them on the street. That shoplifting appears to have been decriminalised, that burglary is not investigated properly, that the Mets had to apologise yet again, yesterday or today, to Dorian Lawrence for information that came forward from the BBC, which the Mets themselves haven't discussed. You know, I was Crime Prevention Minister. The police are not preventing crime, and they're not investigating it properly when it does occur.
How would you deal with this right now? 30 seconds. If you were the Home Office Minister in charge, what would you say to the police?
Well, you've got to get all the chief constables in the office, in the Home Office, and go through things with them, actually, and say, this is what the priorities are, this is what we expect from the police force, and here's your challenge. Come back in 3 months' time and tell me which boxes you've ticked. That's what they should be doing.
And in fairness to Sadiq Khan, he has called for an apology for what happened, and he called the initial apology from the Met Police, insensitive and wrong,
Okay.
and has called for a meeting with Sir Mark Rowley today to talk about those issues as well as community cohesion. So thank you so much for both joining us this morning, James Hanson from Times Radio and Norman Baker. Now, do stay with us as we take a look through some of this morning's front pages now. Most of all lead on this top story. The Mail says that Jewish leaders are calling on the Met Police chief to resign, saying that they've lost faith in the police.
In the Telegraph, the PM refuses to back Sir Mark Rowley, who now faces questions over the force's treatment of a Jewish man.
And voters put police in the dock, according to The Times, as a majority of Brits admit they don't trust officers to solve crimes.
Right, listen, I'm going to stick up for my cohort. This was totally wrong. You lot are staying here. You're earning your money.
Sorry, I thought you were leaving.
No.
Do you know what? I
Listen.
said they're going to be leaving. Then do you know what? I just like thanking you.
No, you were blinded by his bleeding jacket.
That was
what
it.
you
I
were
was
just...
just-
You look at that, for God's sake.
I
Let's
was
get back to...
bedazzled, but we're going to turn on to a different topic
Please,
now.
please.
Returning to Westminster and
No.
the MP, Mark Menzies, who's just quit the Conservative Party and will stand down at the next election.
Norman, say yes, Mark.
Yes.
It's 3:30 in the morning. I met some bad people online. I need $6.5 grand because that... What? Yeah. Honestly, mate, what are the British public supposed to think
Well,
about these
I mean,
politicians?
the issue there is actually the misuse of party funds. It seems to me to be in terms of what's illegal about things. But you know, this is a real dishonour. We've got Mark Menzies, we've had William Bragg, Scott Benton, Lee Anderson, Bob Stewart, Crispin Blunt, Peter Bone. I've written them all down, but my pen ran out of ink. I mean, it's just been a constant stream of
There were
sleaze
12, aren't there, I think,
from the Conservative Party. This is like the John Major years, you know,
It
multiplied.
does mirror 1997 at the end when Blair swept in because everybody said... And you're right. Listen, we get... You know, I go on about rent boys every day, but this is about using campaign funds for his medical bills, probably because he'd caught something, allegedly.
And there's not going to be a by-election. He says he's going to stand down at the next election. Obviously, that's not too far away. But frankly, given the seriousness of some of these allegations, a lot of people might think...
Can I
of
just
course he
say Lee
disputes
Anderson
them.
didn't lose the whip because of the...
No, he's affected.
allegations.
He's affected.
Let's just make that point.
But why isn't there a by-election? He thinks he can limp on until the next election. A lot of people would say, given the seriousness of the allegations against him, if he has a case to answer, he should resign as an MP now and there should be a by-election. The reason there's not is because, frankly, the Tories are terrified they would lose that, even though it's a relatively safe Conservative seat.
Just a question. You were an MP. Do they think they're untouchable? How stupid do you have to be, with the greatest of respect, to think as an MP, an elected MP, you can go on some website, go to a young person's house, I'm treading really carefully here, and then phone some... Whatever it is, you know what I'm trying to say, younger than him probably. How are MPs stupid, Norman? Help me out, because they don't look like the sorts of people we should look up to anymore.
Well, I mean, MPs are the same as any other people in society, to be honest with you. I mean, you'll find people behaving in slightly odd ways, no matter what job they're doing, whether they're working in broadcasting or working as plumbers. I mean, people just behave as people behave. And, you know, I've always taken the view that MPs, like anybody else, is entitled to a private life. And if they're not breaking the law, it's nobody's business what they're doing. So that's why I started, Jeremy, by saying that the issue for me here was the misuse of party funds, the possible illegality there. That's the issue for me.
And it gets turned into, because of the sort of salacious details attached to it, it becomes a sleaze scandal of a sort of sexual nature, whereas actually that's irrelevant, really. It's about party funds.
And you do wonder whether... I mean, I find this really genuinely curious, because I look at myself and I think, I lead quite a dull life.
So boring.
I look at some of these people and some of these stories and I think, oh, my
Tell
word.
them where we were last night.
What are they up to? I mean, with the William
Dodgy
Bragg affair
club.
a couple of weeks ago, what was remarkable is some of the MPs who were then contacted by this, you know, person who was catfishing or whatever, then responded with intimate images of themselves. And you think that's two other people who see fit to just
I don't understand. I
get
genuinely don't understand in this world. We've talked about this, haven't we, Nick, right? How can you be that stupid? Maybe we expect too much of our politicians, Norman, but really sending a picture of your bits or going to some ridiculous, and you end up feeling, and my real fear, because politics is sort of central to what I believe in, and I believe in a democracy and free speech. People are so turned off with this. I don't care what anybody says. This election will have such a low turnout, and that, to me, is the biggest mistake, because people need to have a say.
It will have a low turnout, and it goes back to actually, I think, back to MPs' expenses.
Yeah.
And it goes back even further, if you like, to the dishonest way in which we're told that the weapons of mass destruction existed in Iraq. And the Prime Minister, I think, lied to the Commons about that very serious matter, Tony Blair. And it goes back to those things. So there is a distrust in politics. As far as William Ragg's concerned, you know, if he wants to meet somebody, that's his business. The issue with William Ragg, again, was the fact that he then betrayed the confidence of other people who are unconnected by giving them our phone numbers out. That's the issue there.
We're going to move on to a different story now. Apparently, 1 in 8 Labour voters think that the St George's Cross is racist and divisive, according to a new poll. Norman, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, that St George's Cross has been adopted by far-right parties over the years, and therefore I can understand why people have reached that conclusion. And in this country, we don't have a history, really, of or a practice of flying flags as much as they do in, say, America or Sweden, where they're on every single garden. People don't use flags very much over here. So when Keir Starmer tells the Labour Party to embrace in the flag on Tuesday, St George's Day, that sounds a bit odd to most people, including Labour Party members. And also, I have to say, if he wants to embrace the English flag, why is he not talking about St Andrew's Day or St David's Day?
Very interesting. Yeah, I thought exactly the same
Union
thing.
Jack him, yeah. James, thoughts?
Yeah.
There is nothing racist about the St George's Cross.
No.
And if we give up on this, and if we say, yeah, the EDL and far-right extremists,
Well,
they can
reclaim it
own
from
the
them, then.
English flag, then, I mean, what does that say about us? I'm the kind of person who, when it's the World Cup, I stick those plastic flags on my car, the St George's Cross. So I'm very proud to fly the flag. I see nothing wrong with it. And frankly, I think more people need to do it so that it's not just associated with the far right.
To kind of reclaim
Completely.
that symbol.
Reclaim it, yeah.
And with
Completely
Norman,
agree.
though, why isn't the potential future leader of the country doing the same thing
But
for St David's Day?
his is a grab, obviously. What
It's a
I
grab,
would say
yes.
is the Scots are very proud of their flag. The Irish, just said it an
Yes.
hour ago, are very proud. The
That's
Welsh.
right.
We are not allowed to be. And if it is because it has been adopted, it should be reclaimed from those people.
Well,
But you get into an awful lot of trouble in some places if you fly the St George's flag, because apparently that's disrespectful. But we can fly every other flag. I think Jay's right.
No, well, I think
reclaim
right, it's right, we should reclaim it in a sense. But, I mean, I'm just saying that there isn't a tradition of flying flags as there is in other countries. But look, I mean, what Starmer's doing is not about embracing the flag because he believes in it. He's doing it because he wants to appeal to Tory voters. That's what he's
Norman,
doing.
did you, as an MP, did you ever lie?
Did I ever lie? I don't recall lying.
Angela Rayner mystifies me. I know the right jump on it, the left jump another way. Here's my point. I don't understand. I think she's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. I don't care about the person who said, oh, it's only £3 grand. There's a difference between right and wrong. Why the hell doesn't this woman just come out and say, made a mistake, it's £3 grand, I'm sorry. This is going on and on. And we've had people already who say, Norma, this is going to bury her. And it seems so unnecessary. Tell the truth.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And actually, sometimes the cover-up, as it were, is worse, far worse than the offence in the first place. And I think back to my Lib Dem colleague, Chris Huhne, and the issue about him, whether he was driving a car or not. Do you remember that?
Yes, his wife.
And actually, if he just come out and said, yes, it was me, then it would have been, the issue would have gone away within half a day. Instead, it dragged out for weeks and months, and he ended up losing his seat and going to prison over it.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the longer it goes on, people think she has something to hide.
Yes.
I've also, Norman, got a belief that Keir Starmer's not that bothered about it. You were saying that you don't agree with that earlier.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, as for whether Keir Starmer wants to see the back of Angela Rayner is an interesting point. I think maybe a couple of years ago he saw her as more of a threat than maybe he does now. Now he looks quite secure given the Labour poll lead. But I do think, you know, the problem is Labour have passed the point of no return here because they have obfuscated and denied any wrongdoing for so long that if anything comes out that shows that Angela Rayner is at fault, I mean, she's admitted herself, she will end up resigning. It didn't need to get to this point. It did not.
No.
Had she, from day one, just
not great
addressed the
management,
allegations
is it?
and
It's
said,
terrible
look, I'll
management.
pay whatever's needed, it would have gone away.
It's terrible management, and actually, whatever she's done, even if it's the worst scenario, I'm not quite sure what she's actually accused of particularly, but whatever she's done is frankly not nearly as bad as some of these Tory MPs who've had to resign. So you have to see things in
The
comparison.
problem is, and listen, I ain't defending anybody, right? Because I think we expect and should absolutely expect more. The problem is, if you stand for public life, people at least want to believe that you're telling the truth. And if you try and cover something up, it's no good at all.
I think you've
like,
got
like that bloke, you know, that Scott Benton bloke.
Yeah, you've got to...
Your area. Revolting.
You've got to tell the truth, and you've got to be accountable for what you do in public office. That's not being accountable for what you do in your private life, but being accountable in public office. That's where I think the line should be drawn. And if people get it wrong with their MP's expenses, then they should be held to account for it.
Absolutely.
And that's difficulty with the Angela Rayner story is that it was before she took up her position in public office,
Yeah.
so that there's that
Yeah.
kind
But
of
also,
argument.
complicating matters, she has been very vocal in the past, calling for tax transparency from even just Conservative candidates. So if you're going to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk.
It's very true.